Got to give the people, get the people what they want. What the people want is for you to write this down and just draw yourself, what's this thing called? A unit circle. All right, I labeled the first part of it for you. Go ahead and draw a unit circle. So you'll draw the circle. You're going to put in basically each of these sections, right? Go ahead and just draw your version of the unit circle, okay? I know it's not going to be perfect. Don't worry about it. And then label this part of that unit circle as well. All right? So now, what we're going to talk about is connecting this piece of the unit circle, this quadrant 1 of the unit circle, to quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Okay? So, in quadrant 1, just to remember, right, we have an x and y value for the coordinates, right? We're talking about this triangle, right? And we know that the x value was root 3 over 2 because that's where we traveled on the x value. And the y value was 1/2. We did this in class. So now what we're going to imagine that you folded this thing across the y-axis, right? So when I do that, I'm going to be like, oh, if I was to take this point and go straight across the y-axis, I end up right here, right? So I end up with this same triangle. It's just on the other side of the y-axis, okay? Well, notice x now is negative root 3 over 2 because I went on, if this is the origin, this is the negative side of the x-axis. And y is still 1/2 because it's still going up, right? So x becomes negative 3, it's not 3, negative root 3 over 2, and y is 1/2. Hopefully you could see how those are connected, all right? Now I'm going to do the same thing. Let me get rid of this. Now we're going to look at one of those other points that we knew, all right? So we knew this one right here. And again, we did this work in class, and we were like, okay, this is root 2 over 2, and this was root 2 over 2. Both of those are in the positive direction. Now again, I'm going to imagine that I fold it across the y-axis. So I'm going to go straight across the y-axis and be like, okay, there's the corresponding point. So now I'm going to draw that triangle. And I'm going to be like, okay, well, this is now negative root 2 over 2 because it's the same as this. And this is now root 2 over 2, right? Because it's in the positive direction. So this is in the negative direction. This is in the positive direction. So x was negative root 2 over 2, and y was root 2 over 2. All right? So we got that. Bong, bong. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Boom, boom, boom. And now we're going to look at this last triangle, which was this one right here. And we knew that this was 1/2 and this was root 3 over 2. So what I'm going to turn around and do is I'm going to fold it again on the y-axis. Notice that that's going to take me right here. So I'm going to draw this triangle, the same triangle. I'm going to be like, oh, okay, now this is negative 1/2, and this is still root 3 over 2. Negative 1/2, root 3 over 2. Okay? So now, what I should be starting to notice is, get this right here. Everything in quadrant, everything in quadrant 2, right? X is always going to be negative and Y is always going to be positive. So let's look at quadrant 3. What's going to happen down here? Are the X values down here going to be positive or negative? Hopefully you're like, oh yeah, all the X values are going to be negative. Then what about the Y values? Are they going to be positive or negative if you're down here? And you're like, oh yeah, the Y values are also going to be negative. So everything on this one has a negative X and a negative Y. So let's take that now and let's do something with it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fold along the X-axis. Okay? So we're going to imagine that we're folding along the X-axis. So this one would go here. Now I don't have to draw the triangles all over again because I'm like, oh, all the X's are negatives and the Y's are negative. So on this one, this is what it was. So the X's are negative, negative root 3 over 2. And the Y's are negative, negative 1/2. I got it from here. I just made the X's and the Y's negative. Okay? Boom. Boom. Undo, undo. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Right? So, let's now look at this next piece. Hold on, give me 1 sec. I just want to clean this up for y'all a little bit. Okay. Let's look at this next piece. I'm still folding over the X-axis. So this one, if I folded it over, it's going to go right there. I'm saying, okay, here's what I started with. But now I know I'm in quadrant 3, so all my X's are negative and my Y's are negative. So if I'm referring to this, my X's are negative, so negative root 2 over 2. And my Y's are negative, negative root 2 over 2. I got it. All right, now I'm getting rid of this bad boy right here. And I'm going to keep this on the Y-axis right here. But now I'm going to fold this last piece over the Y-axis. It's going to correspond with that spot right there. And again, now I'm looking here. And I need all my X's to be negative and my Y's to be negative. So, negative 1/2 and negative root 3 over 2. Man, I am chilling. I am chilling. So now let's see. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Okay. So finally, I got to do one more fold. I'm going to fold along, what is this? The Y-axis again. Okay? So now I'm in this quadrant, quadrant 4, and I'm going to notice in quadrant 4, you tell me what happens with X or Y's. Are they positive or negative? Hopefully you're like, okay, I see. If I'm going to be in this area, my X's are positive and my Y's are negative. Okay? So now that I know that, why don't you fill out these last 3 spots? Cool. You just paused. You filled out those last 3 spots. And I'm going to show you just to make sure you're right. So I folded. I see that those are the same. So X is positive, Y is negative. So X is 1/2. Y is root 3 over 2. I'm going to fold this one across. I know X should be positive, Y should be negative. So X is positive, root 2 over 2, and negative root 2 over 2. I'm going to fold this one across. X is positive, Y is negative. So it's going to be root 3 over 2. X is positive, Y is negative, negative 1/2. Just from starting in quadrant 1 and knowing how to label quadrant 1, I can label and create the rest of, what is this thing called? The unit circle. There's one spot we didn't talk about. We need to talk about the coordinates for this spot, this spot, this spot, and this spot. Why don't you write for me what you believe the coordinates for this spot are? All right, hopefully you did that. And you were like, okay, well, it's a unit circle, so this is 1 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. Now, if you're looking up here, this is 0 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. Now, if you're looking here, this is -1 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis. And finally, if you're looking down here, go down. So I go 0 on the x-axis and down 1, -1 on the y-axis. All right, that is the video. Hopefully it's the introduction. It is the concept behind it. I know the notes might have been kind of hard to take, but hopefully you got it and you get the idea. We'll talk about it more in class. Peace.